Okay. To the agenda. Okay. I can, I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Cape Coral Charter School Governing Board, Tuesday, April 7th, 2015, Council Chambers, 9 a.m. We begin our meeting, and we will rise for the invocation and start with our pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We'll have a moment of silence. We want to make sure that everybody had a wonderful holiday, that our kids came home back to school safely, and just a moment of silence. Thank you. You may be seated. Roll call. And we will have some corrections on the roll call.
Anderson. Boyer.
Here.
Donaldson.
Present.
Jackson.
We'll be
Keys.
late.
Will be late. Kiesler. Nesta.
Here.
Teblum. Zivkovic.
Here.
Okay, and we'd like to announce that the voting member that took Marilyn Stout's place will be Robert Zivicko, Robert Z. And we'd like to congratulate Odette Boyer on her reappointment. And at this time, we'd like to also thank Marilyn Stout for her 9 years of service. We will miss her dearly, and I'm sure she'll stay in touch and let us know what's going on. So again, we'd like to recognize Marilyn for an outstanding 9 years of service. So on behalf of the board, we say thank you. And again, Robert will take her place. Okay, approval of minutes.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? Minutes are approved from March 9th, 2015. And there is a change in the regular agenda. On number 12D will be added, approval of the Oasis High School JROTC drill team competition in Florida. I can't read where in Florida. Is there a clarification where that is? Oh, Lakeland, okay, sorry, Lakeland, Florida, April 10th through April 11th, 2015. So we'll add that to the new business. All in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? Okay, approval of the agenda, we did that at a regular meeting, and superintendent report, please.
Good morning and welcome back, everyone.
Good morning.
Wanted to go through a list here. I've got several items to go through, so I'll do my absolute best to make them clear and concise and expedient as best possible. Okay. I wanted to let you know, first of all, as you know, we had a high school principal leaving us. Miss Lunger has left us to retire. Unfortunately, we will wish her the best, but we will miss her severely. We were able to secure a new principal, a Miss Shannon Treese, who will be starting with us on July 1st. She was vetted by a group of administrators, all of our administrators actually. She was one of 5 candidates, and then we also had, as you know, many governing board members that were able to come and visit with her after. And so we feel like she'll be a great addition, and we're very excited. We'll be announcing most likely a meet and greet towards the end of this month. She'll be returning back to give us kind of another opportunity to kind of spend some time with her. I don't have an exact date. She's working on travel arrangements now. Once I do, I'll email that out to you. We'll probably do a day meeting and then an afternoon or nighttime kind of meeting, so anybody that would like to show up. So again, we're very excited for her to be there. Over the break, I'd like to thank Daryl Teblum and the maintenance crew. We have now secured a hydroponic gardening system for Krista McAuliffe. It is an awesome opportunity, so Daryl, thank you very much for doing that. Actually even helped with the group to get it there, so we appreciate that. This is really a Kickstarter. I would look at it as an opportunity for us to vertical align some of our curriculum. So this is a start. Let's say we do hydroponic at Krista McAuliffe, and we do some traditional gardening, and the students can start to see what grows better in what environments. And then we go to the middle school, and they extend that and do something else with it. And then at the high school, I've already talked to the chef. She's going to do a garden this summer. We're going to get it set up for her, and she's actually going to infuse some of that into what she's cooking. So, and we're looking at what they can do, if they can modify things genetically and do some really kind of heady experiments at the high school level. So again, trying to get that curriculum to be vertically aligned, and this is a first step, so I'm really excited about it, and so we do appreciate you doing that. As far as communication, it's something that I said from the very first meeting, and I want to make sure that we do our best job at doing that. We are going to put out the magazine again. It'll be a lot longer. It's going to be around 40 pages this time. It'll come around May, early May, and it will have lots of information about our school system, and it'll help us combine and also learn what's happening at schools that we may or may not be part of. The other thing that we're working on there is an application. You know, if you've watched the news, the city's looking at an app to have. Well, we'd like to do the exact same thing. And so it would be one that would give push notifications if you'd like. So in other words, as a parent, it's like the K-12 except on your phone. It would pop up, hey, don't forget this is happening, or whatever might be there. Plus it directly links you to the website. So we think that this will be a good step. I'm talking to vendors now. I've worked with vendors before to develop apps. So I think as far as costs, we're very low. I don't think there's going to be a huge financial impact, but I'll send all those details to you all later. I'm just wanting you to know that's being worked on. Facilities, very excited to report that the foundation has approved a $5,100 request that I made regarding fencing and gate needs in the back of our school. We're very close to getting a practice field. At this point, it looks like we're going to try to do just traditional grass without irrigation, so that we're not investing a ton to see how we are going to, this will all work out. We have enough room for about 2.5 fields back there. It's an area that's already been cleared. And I will have a lot more information by the next governing board meeting for you. I just wanted you to know that's working. But what's really nice is with this new change, and once I can get it all on paper for you to see, we'll actually have parking for our high school students as well. So it's going to take care of kind of 2 issues that we have right off the bat. So by the time school starts in August, we'll have practice fields for kids. And then we also, within about the next month or so, we should have parking for our students immediately, which will pull them off the street. So I do appreciate Councilman Nesta for helping us get city folks to secure and help us get the field cleared and other things as well. So if you haven't been behind the school, take a drive around, take a look. You'll see that the fencing area is already blocked off where we're going to be doing this. And again, I don't have a lot yet because I want to provide you the full details by next meeting. Just wanted you to get information. Lobbying activities. I did get to spend 3 days in Tallahassee. What a trip. What a wonderful opportunity. I was able to have individual meetings with Representative Eagle, Representative Fitzenhagen, and Senator Benaquisto. I was able to meet the governor and give him my card, but that was it. So that was about the extent as I saw my card being handed off to the aide. So not sure where that got. But anyway, we had a really good positive meeting with Senator Benaquisto, who's actually sponsored a bill. It's Senate Bill, House Bill right now, 7037. And it's working. There's a companion bill also being worked on. It's in the Appropriations Committee right now that addresses several things, but most excited is the actual capital. And one of the things that it talks about in the bill is that 40% per pupil as far as the spending goes, that we would get that much in capital. And if the Lee schools cannot pay for that, or the local school district, they actually have to go out and do a millage assessment to get that money. So in other words, we would have to get the 40%. So it's a start. It's huge. It passed in the House something like 70-ish to 30 something. So it's made it that far. Now it's in the Senate and again in the Appropriations Committee. So really excited about that. There is also Senate Bill 1552, which has a litany of things in it. One of the things is a $10 per pupil expenditure for us if we wear uniforms. Well, here we are, so we're in good shape. So what I'm going to do, instead of detailing each of these, is today I'll send you an email that'll highlight exactly each specific about the bills. But I think we're farther than we ever have been, and I'm really excited about the opportunity because I believe with the support that it has, I think this is going to move forward. All indications are, again, it's passed the House already, so and it is being supported by some very powerful folks that are working really hard on our behalf. Representative Eagle is going to be coming by our schools most likely after the session this year, but he's going to do kind of a meet and greet and then talk to some of our students, so we're excited about that, and we were able to secure that. So this trip was a really, really good one, and I think beneficial to our district. Another thing that is important to mention is when it comes to professional learning for our staff, and especially for our administrators, one of the things that this bill does allow us to do is to build our own professional development for our school leaders, which is really amazing. So if this happens, in other words, what's happened traditionally for our people to be trained, they'd have to go to our local school district, get their training, and then come back to us. Well, this bill has included in it a section that says we can develop our own program. So I'm really excited. When we talk about building internal capacity, that is something that I think we should certainly, I will jump on the bandwagon and make sure that we're doing that. Advanced Ed, we have a team of teachers heading over, and administrators heading over to West Palm Beach at the end of this month for accreditation training. Just so you know, it's mostly different folks than went last time. But that's on purpose. We'd like to get as much internal capacity when it comes to accreditation as we can. So I'm driving the van myself, and I think there's 8 or 10 of us that are going in that range. And so we'll spend the day over there getting accreditation training so that we are still on that process. It's very important for us to get through the accreditation and make sure we're doing that. The rally, as you know, is coming up. I'll leave that to Mr. Hook. It's his baby, and he's done a lot of work with that. But make sure we have that on the calendar. Buses, the buses did arrive. We're going to probably tomorrow, but we want to make sure. We're going to send out a press release. I'll invite you all this afternoon. I'll send it once we confirm the time. But I want to do a big ceremony. It's a pretty big deal because these buses are almost zero emissions. I mean, they're as close as you can get pretty much. We're calling it clean diesel delivery, which is the name of the system that they use. But they're very low emissions, so we need to make a point that that's as important as getting the buses themselves, is the fact that they're doing that. Mr. Nest, I want to thank you as well for including the charter system in the request for bus lighting for our bus stops. So he mentioned there's $100,000 out there that City Council has requested that to light some of our bus stops. And initially it just said the Lee School District, and again, Councilman Nesta made sure to just put that out there to make sure don't forget our charter schools. And the last thing that I have is we're holding monthly city safety working group meetings. This is a new thing, not something that I put together, but it's the city's end. And what is nice about it is it's an opportunity for us to actually meet with city folks once a month to talk about what issues we have when it comes to safety and concerns that we have towards our school system, and then also to hear what's happening on the city side. So it's a great opportunity for us on the instant to actually say, hey, we have this issue, and to have the people in the room that might be able to address the issue immediately. So we're really excited about that happening. And again, I want to thank the city for allowing us to be part of that. We think it'll be a good opportunity to be able to voice our concerns, and again, to get rapid fixes, which is the best way to make sure that our students and staff are as safe as possible. So, and that's the extent of my report. Any questions?
Very good. Any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Boy, I was gone for a month and all these good things happened. I think I need to leave again and have more good things happen. Okay, Chairman report, we'll postpone that till Amy returns. Foundation report, we'll postpone that unless anybody has any news on the foundation. Okay, public comment. All right, Mrs. Stout.
Good morning. I'm here today because I wanted to congratulate Odette and Rob on their appointment and reappointment. And also, I wanted to share a little bit about what's going on in Tallahassee. And Nelson has addressed some of the bills, but I thought I might share just a little bit more information. The House bill that pertains to the $10 per child for those schools that require uniforms between kindergarten and 8th grade. This bill was passed in the House 102 to 8, which is pretty strong support. But there is not a Senate bill yet, so that's something that you might want to be aware of. Even though you have a wonderful lobbyist, Carol Green is, I think, outstanding, but it's something that you'll want to pay attention to make sure the Senate does it, because that's a good source of funding. The House and the Senate have similar bills to allow principals more control over their budget and hiring. Now, I don't know that that has anything to do with charter schools. It didn't go into the information that far for me to determine, but it is still just a House bill, and what I'm talking about are just House bills. And of course, you know, there has to be a House and a Senate bill before it even goes to the governor. The House did pass a bill to lower the fines if you violate class size. So that could affect charter schools. Not that we do it, but you know, you just never know for the future. And it is something that the House does support. House Bill 7037 that Nelson mentioned about giving charter schools 40% of what they would receive if they were a district school. And this funding, if the state does not approve the funds, then it has to come out of the 1.5 mills that the school district presently receives. The school district cannot increase that millage, that 1.5 mills, because that's approved by the state legislature, and they refuse. The school district does continue, that's always one of their issues, is to try to increase that millage, because it used to be 2 mills, and then it was reduced to 1.5. And they continue every year for the last, I think, 3 years to increase that millage, and so far it just hasn't happened. And I think that's it. I will continue my interest in the charter school system. I think we have just an outstanding school system here, and wish you all the greatest luck. If there's ever anything I can do, please let me know. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn, and thank you again for your 9 years of service to the community. Very much appreciated. Okay, moving on, staff and board comment, business manager. We have another. Oh, I'm sorry. Forgive
Ms.
me.
Wayant.
One more, sorry.
Good morning. My name is Serrana Wyatt. My son is a first grader at Krista McCall Elementary School. I had a couple of questions for the board. First and foremost, the half days. I know there has been some discussion about the half days, like tomorrow is another half day. It's a pros and cons to it, and I understand that. I'm curious to know, are you going to continue this next year, or are you going to eliminate some of the half days to maybe once a month? And then my second question is in regards to possibly adding on to Krista McCullough. I think Krista McCullough is an excellent school, and I see the value in building and adding on. I see the room that's there that can be with the, they have the temporary buildings there. I think the value of building on to Krista McCullough is you can continue it on to make it a possible kindergarten to 8th grade school. This would eliminate the opportunity of having to go buy more property for another middle school, and then that would allow some the additional property, the cost of the building and et cetera, that would come on to building a whole new building. Krista McCullough, I feel like our little school is like a little stepchild over there all by itself, and I'd love for us to have the middle school to continue the education. I think that Ms. Collins does a wonderful job over there. And then additionally, it would decrease the load off of Oasis Middle from when all the fifth graders come from Krista McCullough and Oasis and have to then pile into the one middle school. So those are my two things I have to say for the day. I don't know why I'm so nervous. I talk for a living.
Thank you. We do have a comment from Mr. Teblum.
As far as the professional duty days, that's actually something, it looks like we're disproving today, the new schedule for next year. Looks like what's in front of me, looks like we are continuing them. So, hope that answers your question. If this is approved, then we will be continuing them. It does look like it's on a limited basis. It doesn't look like it's every single month, but that's just me looking it over. As far as expansion at Krista, that's something the administration's been talking about, and we're doing everything we can to try to raise the funds externally for an expansion. I do like the idea, though, of putting a middle school there, because one of the ideas floated happened to be about an auditorium, which I thought that was great. Putting a middle school on that campus also may not be a bad idea. It might be something, I don't know, the administration wants to at least entertain at some point. But they are looking into expanding when it's possible. Thank you.
I understand the funds are limited as we're talking about getting $10 a child as we stand, for uniforms. It's a great idea, but I understand the funds are limited, but this would eliminate the additional costs that possibly. I just see this, I was in the Savannah, I'm sorry, I was in Savannah. Sorry. I was in Savannah last week, my family, the middle school and the elementary school that I went to, they kind of combined into one school and built a brand new school, and it's K through 8, and I thought, wow, this is a great idea. And so that it opened up an opportunity that they didn't have to spend as much. So it was just an idea. I thought, wow, light bulb, Krista McCullough.
Well, the expansion at Krista would be between $6 and $8 million, and that's not counting putting the desks in there and, the Wi-Fi system, all the major infrastructure. I've actually been doing a lot of research on that recently. So it's a pretty hefty project. It's not as easy as just going and taking a loan, because you have to have that school pretty much filled within 1 to 2 years at most. But it is something that's being worked on.
Okay.
It hasn't been forgotten about. I'm making sure of that one.
Thank you. And as for the half-days, like I said, there is pros and cons to it. I mean, I understand that it's been beneficial to the staff to be able to have the half-days. I know it's a little bit of a hassle for some parents. I do appreciate the fact that y'all are allowing that if you cannot pick up your child, that you can get them at the 3:15. So
And it's also rubbing off to the students too, because the staff's getting training, and they're also having more planning, so they're able to plan better things for the students. I've had kids over, Chris, and I still have one left. And my wife happens to be one of those educators, so I understand both sides. I got to pick the kids up every other Wednesday.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you for your attendance. Mr. Stevenson, did you want to address anything?
I just wanted to thank you so much for attending and having comments. So it's appreciated, really. And to let you know, we are voraciously looking at every aspect of what we can do when it comes to growth for our schools. And as Mr. Teblum already said, we are addressing the early release time. But more importantly, to let you know that I know Krista McCullough has traditionally had that feel that maybe you're not part of the system, and I can happily report that my son will be attending there next year. So I'll be there every day. So hopefully that will end any of that. So, but I would like to see you after, or get your information if you don't mind, because I'd like parent input. So I do appreciate it. All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. So you got it in. Next year you got it in. Okay, any other comments? All right. Yes, go ahead.
First off, I want to apologize for my sniffling and coughing over here and making a racket. I'm sorry. I think Mr. Nelson and I spoke, and next year's focus, when we get together as a system and plan, it's to look at future expansions, needs, and things like that. Krista McCullough, as you know, my children are there, and we've worked together at the PTO and the SAC. when I was PTO president several years ago, we had plans for the auditorium and lots of things, and that never came to fruition. Hopefully now, as this expansion of the economy goes on and we have more population increase in Northwest Cape Coral, the city and the county are going to see an increased need for more student seats. So I would hope that funding helps that down the road. And obviously there has to be a need, and we have to have a way to fill that need. So I mean, we're positioned nicely with that school out there, and hopefully that leads to more seats down the road.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, our business manager, Mary Ann.
Good morning, Mary Ann Monas. Not a whole lot to report this month. We have received the buses over spring vacation. They've arrived. They are ready to go with the exception of we were just finalizing the insurance with Mr. Quigley from Risk Management to make sure that we're covered. So they are on site and they're ready to go, and we just need to make sure that that insurance is in place before we can use them. I've been working on the budgets for the upcoming school year. Just from the beginning, there's a couple of pretty significant changes that are going to impact the upcoming budgets. There's an increase to FRS at approximately 2%. We have the healthcare reform that we've talked about over the last several months. At current, it looks like we have approximately 60 employees that would be eligible for some type of health care. So we need to look at that. And then also our workers' comp rates have once again increased. So that's just the beginning of the budget process. I've been working very closely with Danielle, our procurement manager, and Danielle is working on getting some quotes for some upcoming items that we know that we need to fix, such as the Krista McAuliffe AC unit out there. One of the other items we have going is our custodial group. Over the last month and a half, we've lost 3 of our employees within that group. We're finding it difficult to retain employees. Lee County School District is hiring custodians. They have taken 2 of our custodians, and then 1 we had no control, over leaving. So I'll be looking at that group a little closer to see what exactly is going on and to come up with some type of resolution to see what we could do. And then the A money that was released last paycheck, so the schools have released all the money to the employees. We received just a little short of $300,000, and that's all I really have to report.
Is the custodians leaving because of pay is better in Lee County?
I've been asking the couple of custodians that I'm aware of that are leaving or have given their notice. Lee County School District does offer benefits to their employees, plus they do pay a little bit higher than what we offer our custodians. We start our custodians out as subs at minimum wage, and then once they're hired from sub to a permanent employee, they go from $805 to, I believe it's $865.
Unfortunately, that's going to be an issue. If we don't provide the benefits and don't pay them,
Correct.
Why would they stay?
Correct.
Something we have to work on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, more for you to work on, how we can give the benefits. It is, that's important. Questions, comment?
One of the things we hear often is that how we do pay less than the county. I guess it would be helpful to me to see what the difference really is. What's the bridge we need to gap to see, because to retrain somebody is a cost in itself. So if we're talking about a minor gap in funding or raising pay for them, we might, in the long run, be more efficient due to less turnover. Is there a way you can show us the difference?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, Ms. Anderson?
Thank you. I think Rob touched on it. I was going to mention, excuse me, voice. Have you considered doing a salary survey of like-sized school districts or in different counties throughout the state? And I know it's difficult to ascertain that, but with the economy recovering, it could.
I mean,
other
unfortunately,
groups.
I haven't done that. It could be something I could work on, in the future after, we get past the budget process. But I look at that one group in particular just to see if there's anything that I can identify.
If it's in this particular group, with the economy improving, it could trickle to other groups within the system. So it might be worthwhile. Just a suggestion.
And hopefully with this Obama healthcare thing, those, actually the custodians are one of the groups that would become eligible for healthcare. So hopefully that, that helps retain them.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our Director of Procurement and Food Services.
Good morning, Danielle Jensen, Director of Procurement and Food Service. Starting with food service, as a department through February, food service was a favorable year-to-date profit margin of $91,000. The same trend continues with revenue being down, but it's offset by a reduction in our expenses. I am in the process of requesting a whole grain exemption. A memo came out in February stating that if the school is having issues with the quality of the product or it's having trouble with the revenue, that you can file for this exemption. We have documented for this year, our school enrollment is up 4%, but our participation in the program is the same at 36%, but we are seeing that our meals are down 12% and our revenue is down 9% year over year through February. So we see that this is an issue that we need to take care of. Our biggest concern is the whole grain pasta. We have certain limitations with our kitchens. We can't, we have to buy cooked whole grain pasta that's been frozen. So we have a limitation with our vendor. So what we want to do with this exemption, this would allow us to be able to buy other products until we can get the right ones or more quantities available. I think this will also provide us some flexibility so we can make sure we meet all the menu requirements throughout the year. I also, last month, I nominated Luz Lorena, our lead over at Krista, for her work on the annual promotion for the National Breakfast Program. She has been recognized as a nominee, which is good exposure for our school and for her efforts that she put for the school. As far as procurement, I met with our landscaper, Gerard, and to go over the scope of helping us work out the area over at Krista that just becomes mud, where the kids are continually playing sports. And they have worked on some quotes. They sent them to me actually over the break, so when I get back today, I'll be looking at them, looking at some options that we can do to help improve that over there. I've also worked on some various quotes for the budget, as Marianne mentioned, working on things like chairs and training and stuff like that, so we can have numbers that we can put in next year's budget. Any questions?
No questions? Okay.
No? Right.
Is there anything the city can do to help with that mud issue?
With the what issue? The mud issue. Well, I think it's just because of the area, the kids play on it and it constantly just gets tore up. So we've talked with the landscaper. We're looking at options like mulching it as opposed to grass. That's one of the options that we're looking at. It's just going to be the cost. It's going to be the issue that we're having because it's where the kids play every day. It's not over at Jim Jeffers. It's the area that by the portables. If you go back there where the playgrounds are and the kids are running back and forth between the two playgrounds and they're running playing soccer and everything like that, it just gets tore up and it becomes muddy. Well, then that mud gets tracked into the sidewalk. It gets tracked into those classrooms and everything like that. So we're just looking at different options. We had an area like that over at Oasis Elementary that the kids were always playing soccer and we did end up mulching it. Now that poses other issues because then you got to try and keep the mulch in the area and stuff like that. But it is an option that we are looking at right now.
Can you use artificial turf?
I think that would be kind of cost prohibitive for us. I mean, it's very expensive.
If I may, if the city's offering help, I think you should let them know we can use a gym.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
You wave your magic wand.
Yeah, because you've got the Airnasium they can play and stuff, but that's often used for PE or covered. So the kids, during recess, they play over in this other area, so.
Yeah, if there's anything the city can do, let me know and I'll try to work on it.
Okay. Yeah, I've started making some contacts with some of the people over there. I think it's Mike Hester that does the Parks and Recs, and he was giving me a lot of insight on what we could do with our grass and different seed you can lay at different times and stuff like that. So it's been helpful to start making those contacts over there and get a better understanding of what we can do with our school.
Rainy season will be starting.
Pardon?
The rainy season will be starting in a couple months.
That will help, but right now it's getting usually through the winter season and stuff like that.
Very good. Any other questions? Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Okay. Do we have a report from Krista?
I've got Becky's report.
All right. Mr. Hook?
Good morning, Steve Hook, Oasis Elementary, and reporting on behalf of Principal Collins from Kristen McCullough. And her report was that they are preparing for FSA testing for grades 3 and 4, as are we. The Kristen McCullough has raised over $9,000 in raffle tickets for the rally, which is awesome. And they are very excited about the hydroponic, and you've heard a little bit about that. And thank you to Mr. She wanted me to make sure I thanked Mr. Teblin for his work in that. So that's Mrs. Collins' report. My report will be short, sweet, and to the point, too. One business item, we are petitioning with the district to expand our enrollment as a high-performing charter under the law. If you notify your district before the 15th of March, I believe, that you intend to exceed your enrollment for the next year, you can. But in the future, moving forward, we have expanded to a point where we've added the extra teacher and go over in the class. People were very transparent with parents about that. And we are petitioning to raise our enrollment by 15%, which would take us to 920, but we can't go that big, but that's a number we would never get to, and so we wouldn't have to do this ever again. And in a couple years, when we're reapplying for the charter, that would already be in place. So there's a second amendment to the charter contract. We enhanced our enrollment to 800 a few years ago. This will take us to 920. We're at 88, but that's as big as we can and want to get. But this will take care of it, the logistics of that. So it will be going before the board, Lee County Board, and then I'll bring it back for your approval after they have approved it later on there. So if there's any questions about that, I can do a quick.
We do have a question.
Yes.
Yes?
My question is, does that affect just Oasis Elementary, or are we able to do that system-wide? Because I know that the high school is going to be in that position pretty soon with, all the overflow, and I know that the other schools, middle school already takes on a lot of kids from what I saw.
I believe on the last round, when we did the charter amendment, the first amendment to the contract, we expanded all those to a number that we thought was workable for them. And so they are in good shape for where they're at and what their current enrollment is and what they could expand to. Whereas this, we expanded that in order to help pick up additional students. We went to that 20 and 24 in each class and then hired the additional teacher. But that put us over, and so we just want to take care of the logistics of it. So
Okay.
So the average classroom, if we do this, will have how many students?
In my building, 20. And then in the upper grades, 24. In 4, 5, 24. We don't go any more than 2 per class, but the additional revenue that enrollment creates is very beneficial.
And you have the classrooms, obviously.
And we have an OM team going to the state very soon. We're very excited about that. 5th grade group going to Marine Lab that you had previously approved earlier in the year. I want to congratulate Lisa Haba. Lisa was our Lighthouse winner this year. And I'm just going to jettison in, there was no foundation report. Kudos to Chris Porter and everybody, Mr. Feichthaler and Mrs. Jackson, all those people that have picked up kind of in a time of need and done a great job to get the Lighthouse going and keeping it going and doing what they're doing. So kudos to them. There's been a lot of behind the scenes work on that, and the foundation, Chris and that group has done a really good job, so we appreciate that. It's rally time. We sent you a couple K-12 alerts over that to sell those tickets. I have tickets if you'd like a book of tickets to sell. They are $20 a piece or 5 for $100, and I'm always hawking that. At present, the ticket sales before we left for break were at about 32,000, I believe, and so we need to ramp that up, but it will get better as it did last year. Last year, at this time, we hadn't even covered the car. I was a little panicked when I went on break last year, but this year we'd more than covered that, and we're getting good response on sponsorships and things. So April 25th is going to be a great day, great music, great entertainment, great car show, so it's going to be a good time.
Where in time, please?
April 25th at the German American Club, and that's noon to 6 p.m.
Thank you.
We have over 25 great prizes to give away in the raffle, so looking forward to it. Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
And if you
25th.
like a book of tickets, I will leave them with Mr. Stevenson.
Okay, Kevin, good morning.
Kevin Beckman, Oasis Middle School. Just want to report we had our STEM team. We have a STEM tour team, and they represented us at Alginal. There was races that we had, and they did extremely well. They placed very high. They represented Oasis very well. They have another tour. They have another event coming up, which I want to let you know about. It's April 18th. It's a Saturday. It's going to be at Four Freedoms Park. And those of you that are familiar with the community, they do the regatta, the cardboard boat regattas. And our STEM team is going to participate. They're actually creating a cardboard boat to participate in that event, which is that Saturday. On the 25th of this month and 26th, the 25th is the rally, but at night after the rally, we have a drama club Dr. Dolittle performance. It's going to be at Cultural Park Theater, and that'll also be on that Sunday as well. So that Saturday and Sunday, 25th and 26th, they'll be doing Dr. Dolittle. I have a couple students I like to recognize. One is Shane DeRepo. Shane, I had the opportunity to go to the Kiwanis Hall, Kingdom Hall. They have a Kiwanis Hall over in downtown Fort Myers, and they're representing the science fair winners in our area, in our region, within our region, which expands up north and south of Lee County. And Shane was recognized there. I had an opportunity to be there. It was very nice. It was a very small little recognition, but it was very nice. And he went on to state competition where he placed fourth out of the entire state for his, and he was working on with different photovoltaic cells and learning and experimenting with the different types of cells. Very interesting project. He went over it with me pretty in depth, a little bit more in depth in detail on what he was trying to what he was experimenting with. And it had to do with the crystals that were inside. There's poly and mono, and the reflective and how it reflects light and how it gathers light. And very interesting, very, very bright young man, very with it, very, very impressive. So he placed fourth in the state, which is phenomenal. And then another student I wanted to recognize was Zachary Cashman. He is he was on the TSA group that went up to Orlando with Mr. Nowicki's class, and he had placed first place for speech. So he went in front and had a prepared speech and presented it. So he went up coming in first place. So congratulations to him. He did a phenomenal job. And last but not least, recognize Kara Reeder. She is our Lighthouse Award winner, and looking forward to recognizing her at the dinner. Carrie is our 6th grade STEM reading teacher, but she also does a little bit of 7th grade as well with intensive students with language arts. She does 7th grade STEM language arts, and she does a little bit of her 7th grade intensive language arts. So congratulations to Carrie, and everything's going well. Great break. And we have our testing coming up. Our testing doesn't start this week. Our testing actually starts next week, and it's going to go over the course of almost 2 weeks, off and on with students, just because we're limited. In middle school, it's all just about all computer-based except for the science test, and that's paper-based, and that'll be that'll be on Monday, April 13th. 8th graders will all be testing on the science, and then we'll be working 6th and 7th grade in the computer labs for for the reading test, off and on. So that'll be going on for the following 2 weeks. Then we get like a week off where we'll be working with some makeups, and then we go right into algebra end of course exams, and then that following we go into 7th grade civics exams. So a lot of exams taking up the next, off and on. It's not constant, but it's off and on throughout the next 4 weeks. So a lot of testing going on. I'm sure you're going to hear that as well from the high school because they have a lot of different tests going on as well. But very well to report that everything's going well.
And for the public, would you please say when the Lighthouse Awards are?
Oh gosh. We're all going to be looking.
May 1st.
I know it's in May. It's right. I think it's
May
that
1st.
first Friday.
May 1st Friday at
Yes,
5
thank you.
o'clock at
I
the
knew it
Yacht
was
Club.
right in the beginning of May.
May 1st, just for the
yes, 5
public.
o'clock. Yes. So
Okay,
thank you for bringing that up.
you're welcome. We take it for granted, but for those of us who are watching, okay. Any other questions? Yes?
One question. Can you send me an email with those 2 kids' names in there?
Yes.
I like to put that on council during my notes. I like to publicize that and push the school.
Absolutely.
And anything positive, I try to do. So if you send me just a little bleep of what they did and how they placed, I will
Absolutely.
make that announcement on
I sure
Monday's
will.
meeting. Thank you.
You got it. You're welcome.
Okay, very good. Any other questions? Thank you, Kevin.
Have a good day.
Okay, our high school report.
Amanda Sanford, Oasis High School. Nice to see you. Just to give you a little update on Kim Lunger, she had her first grandbaby last week. So she is enjoying retirement and started out very nicely. A lot of great things happening at Oasis High School right now. We did start ACE testing today. Our Spanish speaking exam started this morning, and then we go into French later this week. FSA, as Mr. Beckman said, starts next week for the high school as well, runs on and off for the rest of the year as well. Couple things going on with the Spanish department that I wanted to share with you. This year is the first year that our national Spanish examination was given. We had a group of students sit for that in March. The exam will tell them basically how they compare with students around the nation as far as Spanish speaking. And we hope to get those results later this week, or later this month, I guess it is. Also, we had a student that entered the American Association of Teachers of Spanish and Portuguese Scholarship, and they received one of the $1,000 scholarships. Only 48 students in the United States received that scholarship. So that's definitely a high point for Ms. Brueggemann and Ms. Satfield, who have worked very hard with our Spanish students. Also on foreign language, because they've been doing some great things in the department. French, Spanish, and American Sign Language took part in the International Fair for Lee County, and one of our students is actually going to have his poster hung up in the Lee County Schools public school system, and his poster was entitled Power Up Your Brain with Languages. So that was another accomplishment. Overall, we had 15 awards at that international fair, so we were excited to be invited and did very well. Speaking of the Lighthouse recipient, Elodie Cotton was our teacher that won the award. She also teaches French and art for us. So she's one of the people that are very happy right now with her students. As far as athletics go, tennis teams both competed in the district tournaments. We had one of our young men go all the way to the second day. He did very well. He just missed regional finals in the last match with his person, so we just about made it to regionals for the first time. So tennis is doing very well. Softball and baseball as well are doing, having a great season. They're actually going into their district tournaments this week and the next week. And then track and field have broke records for our Oasis High School in every match they've had this year. So we are doing very well in athletically. As far as clubs go, JRTC is getting ready to go to the district competition on April 23rd at Island Coast and compete. They will follow with a state tournament on April 25th, also at Island Coast, and then the trip that we'll talk about later. On March 12th, 4 of our MUN students took third place in the Florida State Euro Challenge competition. The students were there to discuss slow economic growth in Austria, and they were congratulated by the judges for their superior superior presentation and knowledge of what they were talking about. 15 members of the MUN team will travel the 16th of April to Cornell. And then thespians just returned over spring break. 13 of our students competed in the State Thespian Festival. One of them got a superior, several of them got excellence, and we had one good rating. So a lot of exciting things at Oasis High School.
Very good. We have a couple comments.
Daryl? I was wondering, what state did you say the JROTC was going to be at Island Coast?
They're going to be there the 23rd, and then again on the 25th.
What kind of competition is that?
The 23rd, they're there for district competition for the marksmanship team, and then the state tournament is the 25th.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, Rob?
Where do our baseball, well, actually, the tennis, where do they all practice? Baseball, softball, and tennis?
Tennis is over at Mariner. Baseball and softball are at the Trafalgar Fields. Mm-hmm. Well,
Okay, any other comments? Hearing none. Thank
All
you
right, thank
so
you.
much. My goodness gracious, so much going on. Yes, sir. Okay. There is no unfinished business. New business, okay, 12A, approval of Oasis Middle School Explorers Club out-of-county field trip to China, July 5th through the 18th. Kevin?
Good morning again.
Oh,
I had sent, most of you, I sent it to Mr. Nelson, Mr. Stevenson to send it on so you guys have a little bit more information about it prior. This trip has been, I had notified Dr. Pruitt of it way in the beginning stages of planning. Miss Flynn has done a tour with the school since 2009. They went to England in 2009, then they did a tour of Italy 2 years later. So every 2 years, the club goes and does different explorations. And then 2 years ago, they went to Spain and France, and this year they're going to be going to China. The company that they are using is EF Tours. EF Tours has been around for 50 years. They have over 50 offices in different countries. They have over 500 schools that that are part of the program as well. They're they're an accredited organization as well with their services. They handle any concerns that come up during the trip, that they take care of it. There's a tour guide that's on there that's with them 24 hours. I have 4 different employees within the system that are attending as well. So we have a lot of we have parents going as well as many staff members. Even their children are going as well on the tour. So we have a lot set up. And EF Tours, if there is any type of chances, any type of turmoil, they'll pull the trip as well. If there's any concerns there. I did get firm dates that they will be traveling. That came in this morning, and it's going to be, they're going to be leaving on July 4th, and they'll be heading over, and I believe the tour goes all the way to the 17th. All their itineraries, when they go to the different places, some of the places they're going to be going to is Beijing, Hong Kong, Shanghai. I don't know how to pronounce this, but it's, what is it, Xian? Xi'an? Thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Xi'an. And they're all experiential tours. When they go to these different locations, it's all about, learning from the experience and being there. So there's an excellent opportunity. The club's been working towards, raising money themselves and also paying for the trip along the way. And that's been going on. So any questions that I may field that
Yes, we have a question. Rob?
Yeah. Is there an opportunity for other students or just the OMS Explorers to go on this?
No. There's opportunity for students in the system that go.
That are interested.
Yeah, right now it's already planned for this year because they've been working on it for 2 years now. So after they come back from China, Ms. Flynn will be working on what the next place that they're going to be going to.
So for this specific trip, though, the seats are full?
Yeah, they're already filled because they've been working 2 years to fill it, to get the money in and fill it.
Okay.
The trip costs around a little over $3,000. So it's quite a bit of time where they, the parents have been, putting in money and then trying to raise a little bit at a time to help offset some of the costs.
And you mentioned 4 staff members are going. Are they paying their own tickets or?
Yes, traditionally, yeah. They traditionally pay for their tickets. I know Miss Collins, I think Miss Brueggemann, Miss Flynn, and Miss Jensen. Oh, there she is. I believe Miss Jensen's going as well. I'm out of look. I'm missing one, but Miss Jensen, Miss Collins, Miss Jensen, Miss Brueggemann, I think, and then Miss Flynn. I know part of it is I know usually the person who's organized, usually they get a discount or what have you, but then sometimes it's reflected in numerous people's, it's not the charge isn't, so they break it down and lessen it for.
I think it's a great opportunity. I'm glad.
What's the
It
total
absolutely
number?
is.
Total number of people going?
I had that number, and I apologize that it's not right at the top of my head. But if there's another question, I definitely.
Is it a commercial airlines or?
17 individuals, including adults and students.
17, okay.
Yep, 17.
17. And they fly from where to
So
where?
I believe they fly out right at Fort Myers,
Oh.
and then from there, then they have different
Right,
layovers,
stops.
and it's all provided by the tour. Sets all of that up from the moment they leave to the moment they come back. It's all like white glove service.
Very nice. I know I just returned from New Zealand, and the flight from Dallas to Sydney was 17 hours. So
Yeah,
if they're
it's a long-
experiencing anything like that,
I'm sure it's definitely a long flight.
it's a long flight. A long flight. Okay, Odette, did you have a question?
I think you answered most of them. The cost you said was about 3,000 a person. It's about 17. That's 17 people going, you said?
Yes.
Including chaperones.
Correct.
Okay, and they're flying out of
Fort
Fort Myers. Is it a commercial airlines or is this part of? Okay.
Yeah.
And are there any? Are there like shots, vaccinations, things like that that are all involved in going to China or no?
I don't believe so. I mean, not that I know of. I mean, usually like I said, when they've gone to different countries, I won't believe that they're not going to a country that has,
They avoid those countries.
where they need to have, where they're going to be encountering, different viruses, I suppose.
Right.
But
Okay.
Tammy?
Right, that's all I had.
officially, that's like, some of the third world, countries that have, going into like Haiti and stuff. I know there's lots of vaccinations you need when you go to travel, and I'm sure that's where your thought was. Yes.
Oh, Africa, there's a lot of
Yes.
vaccines.
I just wanted to commend you on putting the programs together and making it happen for your students. I believe EF is the same program that the host families locally take the
Yes, thank you for
students from
bringing
the
that
foreign
up.
exchange program. I've had that opportunity to meet those students over the last 4 or 5 years when they've been in the area.
Mm-hmm.
They do a phenomenal job. On a personal note, my niece just came back from India, and they do have shots that are required prior to the trip.
For
And she
India,
spent her spring break there from Minnesota during spring break with her high school class. So it's a great opportunity, and really encourage, if you're able
Yeah.
to participate, do so. And it's a trip
We-
of a
we have-
lifetime for these kids.
As
Make
you-
lasting memories, for sure.
As you were saying, we have many faculty staff that also they host. They do.
Yes.
They host EF tour students that come into our area, and then and what a great opportunity for their families as well to get to know the kids and from all the different cultures and
Yeah.
stuff. So
They've been to my house for pool parties. It's a lot of fun. So that's been
Yeah.
a great experience,
Very
yeah.
good.
Yeah,
I
thank
was
you.
gonna mention that my husband and I did that about 5 years ago. We hosted a little kid from Taiwan, and we just absolutely adored it. I mean, it was great. So anybody can do that, any of you board members, if you're up to hosting kids. They're from Spain, France, Taiwan,
gosh, probably from Hong
France,
Kong
what'd I
or
say?
China.
yeah, Guam. So if you're interested, and they're always looking for host houses.
Yeah.
uh,
I'm sure it's from all those, the 50 different countries which they
Yeah.
have offices in and work with. And
Right, but if you're interested, they're always looking for people to house them. And
Yes.
anybody out in the public, if you're interested in housing kids, it's a neat experience.
it is. It definitely is. So,
Okay, very good,
so I ask
Kevin,
for your
thank you.
approval.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, so, we need to vote on it.
Make a motion to
Oh,
approve.
one more, wait, Daryl, question?
No, he was gonna make a motion.
Oh, okay, make a motion, please.
Do it legit. Motion to approve.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any negatives? Okay, motion approved, very
Well,
good.
thank you very much.
Yes. I expect a nice Chinese meal after this. All right, 12B, approval of superintendent evaluation document. Stevenson?
I wanted to mention, and I would be remiss if I didn't, when I went to that trip in Tallahassee, I was on the bus with some folks that were local from here, and one of them asked me, why the charter schools? Why would I have my kid go to the charter schools? And as Amanda was talking, I was just thinking that she's a perfect example of why, when we talk about the community and people stepping up and the way we are. Amanda is taking on quite a big responsibility, as you all know, stepping into the shoes of Miss Lunger and having 2 months of school left to go. So I just want to thank you, Amanda, for doing that, because it is a big deal, and so we do appreciate it. And that's part of the beauty of our charter school system, is that we do have those folks that are willing to step up and above when called on, so just wanted to thank her. Ms. Jackson did text me during the meeting. She's not going to be able to attend, so just,
We gathered
she's
that.
got some issues at work, so I just wanted to let you all know. So. And then I did get these tickets. I'm hawking now, so this is, so just in case. And, so as far as the evaluation instrument, part of what I wanted to do is try to make sure that we addressed as many areas as possible. As you know, one's called for me in June. It's a short time, clearly, December to June, January 1 really to June. But I think putting this together, I tried to highlight areas that I thought were reasonable, realistic expectations in 5 or 6 months. My goal would be ultimately is to provide another evaluation template that in the next month or two, if this one's okay, that would add on to it, that would start for next year so that I could start thinking about where we're planning for next year. So some additions to this. So again, this is not comprehensive for the next one. This would be just for the June. So as far as opening it up, I really just wanted to make sure that the areas that you saw on there, I'm looking at community relations, management and operations, authority relations, culture leadership, and instructional leaderships were all areas that you all thought would be important components. If there was another area for me to add, I'd certainly be happy to do that. My intention with this, because it is hard for you all, I'm not always being on site, the intention is, without drowning myself in paperwork, is to ultimately give you some sort of samples under each of these categories. So the expectation would be you would have a binder that I would hand, each of you would get a binder, and the binder would have section 1, let's take community relations, and 1A, participates in community activities, and I would either have a list or a calendar or whatever it might be to show what I've done, kind of some backup for you, kind of a little bit of information. And then at the bottom, as you see, it gives really a sampling of what you might see under some of those indicators. And I'd want to be clear that I wouldn't have something for every area because it would be overwhelming. I mean, I could spend all day making binders and I think my time wouldn't be spent well doing that. But it would be general, kind of this is to cover this area so that you know I've done this stuff. And then if there's questions about it or whatever, that would be your opportunity. I've also made it to match a lot of teacher evaluations. I think that's only fair. It would have been easier for me to go just 1, 2, or 3, and you kind of feel like you're stuck in the middle or maybe the higher. And so I went ahead and added the unsatisfactory, needs improvement, proficient, and exemplary. And the idea, as far as I'm concerned, would be proficient as the expected level of where I hope to fall. The exemplary is going up and above and beyond what is called for. And then needs improvement clearly speaks for itself. And unsatisfactory, well, don't even want to talk about that one. But that also ultimately is there for your choices as well. So what you would do in this, if we look at community relations, you take each one of those 5 areas. You would rate me on one of those 5 areas. I'm sorry, under each of these individual areas. And then you would circle an overall rating in that category. So in other words, of those 5 things, what's your feel? And there's no mathematical equation there. It's more of a feel, a gut feel. There's nothing tied to how you would have to rate me. And then if you notice where it says comments and analysis, recommended for any rating. I would love, feedback, written feedback. But I asked for it to be required for overall of exemplary or needs improvement or unsatisfactory. In other words, if you say that I'm doing a great job, why? What can I do? And if I'm not doing a good job, why? And what can I do? So that's kind of the goal there, would be to be asked for. And so there's those 5 areas you would rate me on all of those. I think that it would be important for me to probably do a self-evaluation, and Ms. Anderson had asked, so that was perfect timing. So for me to also fill one out as well, and then you all would fill one out individually. They would go to the board chair, and then the board chair would determine a final product, if you will, based on your input. So this is what I came up with. Any questions?
Okay, comments. We'll start at this end. Oh, well, Daryl, go ahead.
I had a question. Are we looking at doing this at the next board meeting? Or are we looking at doing this in June right before, because we're not here on July.
Right.
It has to be by June.
By June,
According to
yeah.
his contract. Remember, we had to evaluate.
Well, that's what I was saying. Would
Yeah.
you prefer us to do this by the next board meeting? And that way, the chair has time and give the presentation on, the grade, the final.
The June meeting would probably be the best for me. I mean, I would love earlier, but unfortunately, putting some of this together, I've kind of boxed myself in and having to put some of the material together. So it will take me some time to do, but I appreciate the vigor in wanting to do it earlier, and I mean, that would be great. But I'll tell you what I would do is, if there's a possibility for me to feel like that's a possibility, I would email you all and talk about it, and maybe we could add it as an agenda, but let me get to the meat and potatoes of trying to build it before I commit to something.
And instead of going through and creating a big folder or whatever, you might want to just jot 1 or 2, that you feel is important that all one or some or all the board members have no knowledge of. And other than that, because a lot of us, we have knowledge of your activities and all this stuff.
Absolutely.
At least the parents.
And the binder
have a lot
won't
of
take
it.
that long. I mean, I'm not,
Yeah.
it's just, I just would like you to have in hand something that you could refer to exactly for those things, and that's a perfect segue, because that is, and if, at the bottom, some of those are hard to quantify, exactly being involved in the community, and so when you look at each one of those, what am I doing? That may be simply a calendar. These are the events that I've been involved in, or, I've been to this event or whatever. So it's not going to be comprehensive that you look at that, and then you have an evaluation. It will be your input, and then here's some backup to cover those areas that I feel might not be covered from your knowledge of what I do on a daily basis.
I think you did a fantastic job with this evaluation tool. I'd like to make a motion to approve this.
We got some more comments. Okay, Tammy?
I just wanted to say thank you for including the self-evaluation. Maybe for the essence of time, since you've been here for such a short period, I don't know how the other board members feel, but if you provided something of that nature, that might hit upon each of these items, and then going forward, provide the binder when we go to the next mark, since this is just looking at the preliminary. And I know professionally what that allows me to do is I get a snapshot of what you think, and then I can compare it to what I think and see if we're on the same page when that self-evaluation is provided. That's just a suggestion.
Okay, Lenny?
Thank you. I'm controlling the buttons over here too.
You got a longer arm than I do. Good job.
Another way to evaluate would be goals and objectives. And I know in the city, our city manager is evaluated by the goals and objectives the board sets forth to him. Just take into consideration, sometimes when you're doing this type of evaluation, it's a lot more difficult for the board to do this because we're not with superintendent and or the city manager all the time. So it's hard to evaluate somebody on cultural leadership or some of the other things that are in here. How do you evaluate on some of the things that are in here because we're not with them? If the board set goals and objectives, it's easier to evaluate the superintendent on what we set forth in the direction that we're giving him. And that's just another way to look at, that's how we evaluate the city manager. The council does goals and objectives, and if you meet the goals and objectives, you get a good evaluation. If you don't meet the goals and objectives, then we have discussions. And some council people put it in writing. Some council people don't put it in writing. And they do one-on-one communications. So I'm just giving you another option to think about and look at and to consider besides the one that we currently have. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, very good, thank you.
I have one more question. Does this include stakeholder surveys like we've done in the past, for past administration?
We can
Just to get that
certainly,
feedback for those items that you mentioned, where we're not participating or don't see day to day, how they view it.
You know, on the city side, we don't get that kind of.
Okay.
We set goals and objectives
Sure.
for the city manager,
Mhm.
and he meets goals and objectives,
Mhm.
positive or negative, or
Sure.
we have a conversation. We could do the same with the superintendent. Does he meet the goals and objectives this board sets for him? And then we would have to set goals and objectives to have him. And that's just, I'm just throwing it out there. That's just another way to do that. Sometimes speaking personally, I find it harder to do this type of evaluation because we're not with the man all the time. I mean, everybody else has other jobs and other functions, and you're gonna have to get input from other people to evaluate. It's a little easier when you're doing goals and objectives than it is to do this type of evaluation. But I'm good either way. I'm just throwing that up there as another thought pattern.
Rob?
Mr. Nesta, I would be interested in seeing an example of the goals and objectives. Excuse me, I'm sorry. This is, I like this, but I have a couple of specific questions, and then I'll talk to the whole process more broadly. In Standard 5, Instructional Leadership, 1A, for example, ensures that instructional time is valued and protected across the system. When I look at this, I look at these questions. These are questions of us as the board, and if I have trouble understanding the question, obviously I can't answer it well. So what can you explain that one to me?
sure, absolutely. This would be an example of trying to make sure that our teachers have opportunities for professional development outside the structured school time. In other words, we're not pulling teachers to cover other classes. We're not pulling teachers to go to training. We're making sure that they have access to their room, that their time is their time, and we guard it voraciously. And that's something that teachers would understand. Outside, if you're not a teacher, I understand it doesn't maybe necessarily make a lot of sense. What I would tell you as well is I love the idea of goal and objectives. I mean, that's my mindset as well. Part of this is to spur that conversation, to get this going, and so I'm real amenable to to how we go through, because Many of these are directly off of either the Lee School, some of them are off other superintendent evaluations across the state, and I kind of took a conglomerate of what I thought is reasonable within the 5-6 months that we're evaluating, not a full school year. So to address that, I think what my job would be to do, and that's why I said the portfolio, would be to kind of show you what we've done to do, how would I meet 1A, and
Right.
to show you how. And if I don't address 1A, well then for you could put unsatisfactory, or I don't get it, or a conversation, give me a call, or whatever it might be.
What about C there, same page? Celebrates with the larger professional community practices and procedures that have resulted.
Absolutely. This is looking at those things that are happening inside a particular classroom and best practices, and allowing, let's say that we know that there's something really working in a 3rd grade classroom. Then we would make some time for a 3rd grade teacher to go visit that classroom to see what's happening. And then I would celebrate and share by sending an email out to everybody, hey, look what's happened in 3rd grade. This is a great opportunity. Anybody interested in it would be across the system. Sometimes those things translate. A 3rd grade project may actually translate to high school because it's how they deliver the material, not necessarily the material itself. So, again, I'm not married to any of these specific.
Right.
And if there's, amendments, I just wanted to get the process started. So if there's ones that aren't, valid or whatever, I'm fine with.
Okay. Where on this would be holding teachers accountable? In any of the 4 or 5 pages?
Can I say something? I'm not sure if it's your job necessarily. Yes, it is to hold teachers accountable, but that's what you have principals. And I think it's very difficult for us to separate the leadership of a principal and the leadership of a superintendent. And I think that's where our conflict has always been is, you're giving them principal skills, but that's not really what we're doing. We're not micromanaging the principal. That's his job to do that. So we need to make sure that he is communicating with the principals, and that's really, I think, what we're judging him on, because then it's up to the principals to deal with their staffs. Excuse me, it's contagious. Flew it down here. And that's why this is such a difficult, and when we say goals, our goals are that you have 4 schools doing what they're supposed to be doing, because you're dealing with principals that have the influence over their schools. So it's a difficult tool to start assessing or to create. So when you talk about goals, we need to decide, well, what are our goals? We had a whole leadership thing, and are we going back to those 7 things that we created? And is that what he's accountable for? Because we've already created, what do we call it? The
Strategic plan.
Thank you, the strategic plan.
I've had my light on for a while, that's what I was gonna tell you.
Right, so we've already had the strategic plan, and is that what we're holding him accountable for, is going back to that strategic plan?
Right.
So these are all things we need to discuss, and if you want to take
Well,
over?
Go
ahead, Rob.
I wasn't done yet, I'm
Okay.
sorry. No, so going back to Mr. Nestor's suggestion of the specific goals, that would help. Then we know what Mr. Stevenson is responsible for versus what the principals are responsible for, and it would clarify for us. But without seeing we have to do something, because we have to give him feedback in June.
And I concur, that's, and I was just giving you food for thought of how we do it on the city side for the city manager.
Right.
It is not our responsibility, let me rephrase that. I don't believe it is our responsibility that we look at teachers or principals on this phase of it. Our responsibility is to evaluate the superintendent. Just like on the council side, our responsibility is to evaluate the city manager.
Right.
The city manager who we pay big dollars for is to run the city. The superintendent, who we pay a good chunk of money for, is to run the school system. We as the board evaluate the superintendent on his performance, and he takes care of the rest of everything out there. That's how, and goals and objectives could be, the strategic plan, but it's something the board has to make up, that what we're looking for to evaluate him on. That's all I'm saying.
And if I can impart a little bit, part of what my thought is exactly that. I've had some conversations with some governing board members about the next one being that's what I meant about other things in this plan, would be more the strategic plan oriented. For me, coming in January out of, I'd argue fairness for me, it's hard to implement the strategic plan half mid-year. So the intent was this is the start. That's why I pushed to delay the strategic planning session closer, which would make sense to align with how we're going to evaluate me for next year, which makes complete sense to me. I mean, the reality is there's 7 things there. I can be held accountable. We can make goals at the strategic planning session as part of, hey, this is what needs to be done over the course of a year. This was in my intention to get us through. And so some of those things that are a little bit less quantifiable, my argument would be the fact is that that's what I've had to do since I started is these things, the management and operations, the community, getting involved in understanding the rules and roles that I have. So although I would agree that they may not hold me as accountable, I think in a way they do, because that's what I've had to do. Build cultural leadership, you talk about holding people accountable. That's kind of what I've had to do, but learning the system before I can hold people accountable. So it's kind of a stopgap. My thought is stopgap, get us through this one, and then we can move forward to the next one.
Okay, we'll continue with comments. Thank you. Jennifer?
As much as I love physical evidence, and I do, the idea of a binder, it seems just like a lot of work. And what I was wondering and perhaps suggesting is that underneath all of these examples, these 1A, 1B, perhaps breaking them out a little bit. It would help us understand, like Mr. Zukovic said, what each of them mean, maybe 3 or 4 points underneath each. That would also, I think, maybe negate your need for evidence, because then we'd have sort of more specific information, subpoints there to work on. And of course, a self-evaluation would be perfect. That would negate the need for evidence as well, because you'd then be evaluating yourself. The other recommendation I have, the form we had last year had an additional box on the end, satisfactory, unsatisfactory, whatever, that said, not enough information. And I'd like to have that box back. I only needed it like once or twice last year, but there were some things where I just did not feel comfortable evaluating somebody on, because I just did not feel I had that information or that sort of direct insight into what the superintendent did. So I felt better just not trying to make a guess.
Okay. Odette? Finally.
Okay. We originally had worked on our strategic plan and had set up all kinds of things to go with it. Then, with our shift in leadership and stuff, we really never had a chance to kind of jump into that. So when I look at this, I felt that this was a good starting point to then be able to expand, but it still touched upon the things that Mr. Stevenson has had to do. He's had to participate with the city council, he's had to have meetings, start building those connections and bridges to be able to help us as a system. So looking at this, I felt like this was a good indicator at this point, the things that he's had to do, and it would be at least a measurable way for us to evaluate. The other thing, in terms of the self-evaluation, I think that would be helpful to us. I don't know that you have to split out every single one of these to put examples for, but if we could let him know if there's some things that we don't understand, maybe he can put IE, like as a little example, as part of the thing. Like Rob was just asking, on the last page, what some of those things meant, and just kind of put next to it, example, i.e. class time, or share best practices, or whatever. A lot of these things have to do with the stakeholders being the teachers, the students, and so on. So I would like to see just what Dr. Pruitt used to do was just a general survey to send out to staff. And she did include that as part of, so it's just another measure. I'm not looking to have you put together this tedious binder that we're gonna have to go through. I think you've got a lot of things that you have to do. And all of our time is also, would be involved in that. So I feel like just some additional examples on this, if individual board members don't understand what some of the sections are. But I think it's easy enough to evaluate. There's no point system that we have to add up, et cetera. And then once we finish our individual evaluation, I think we need to decide today, for turning it in for June, what our timeline should be. So that if we turn it in, are we turning it in prior to the June meeting, so that then our chairperson can review it, because I think contractually, if I'm not mistaken, with Mr. Bustree, we have to do an evaluation at the June meeting. Yes. So we should have the results for the June meeting. So we can, set the date sometime in May to do our individual ones, I guess turn them in. What we did last year was, or at least I was a little confused with that. I turned mine into the administrative assistant, she compiled them all, and then turned them into the chairperson. So if that's okay to do again. So that was my comment.
Thank you. Mr. Tevlin?
Thank you. So I was patient. On the very back page, it talks about management and operations, cultural leadership, instructional leadership. These would actually cover some of the questions that several of the board members had brought up. Considering he's only been by the time we evaluate him, he'll really only be in the position a little less than 5 months. This really does this does cover a lot. If we have any questions, I would suggest, email him as individual board members and, request information on that, like instructional leadership. Some of the board members, may not know what he's done, but I know from my wife that he happened to be sitting in at one of the professional development days. And that shows, and he's been seen in the classroom, and I've been told that by at least 15 different educators. And I just happen to have that grounds-on approach where I know a lot of the educators and I know the students, and these are some of the things that we see. I also know with cultural leadership, I know he's been seen at a lot of different groups meetings, and he's met with a lot of people. Those are things that I personally have knowledge of. I think this is a good starting point, and I do completely agree with Odette that maybe we should have this ready have it ready prior to the June's meeting. Nothing's gonna be perfect in less than 5 months. I think this is pretty close to as good as we're gonna get, unless we're gonna go around and interview personnel to get more information on them. So that's just my 2 cents. I like the idea. I emailed mine back last year. That way it was in time to get it to the chair. And I think that's what you were talking about doing. So I like that idea, and I'd support that idea too.
Tammy?
I think this is a very satisfactory starting point. I think going forward it can be built. I personally don't need a binder either. I give you full credit. The first short few months that you've been here, they're an important time. You need to get buy-in from your stakeholders. You've been in the community. We know you're in the schools. You're with the students. You're building relationships. And I think that's going to be a key thing to the success going forward. So that's a critical piece to me. I agree with the goals and objectives, but might that be a broader piece for the next review and based on our strategic plan. And look at this, for the short time you've been here, a lot's been accomplished and there's still been flow, and we haven't really seemed, at least from my perspective, really missed a beat, and you've been busily, with the principal leaving. He had a lot of things thrown at him in very short order, as well as building these relationships throughout all the stakeholder community. So I don't need a binder if nobody else does.
Okay,
that kind of
Rob.
information.
Thank you, Tammy.
You're welcome.
I just want to echo the no need for a binder. You don't need to tell us why we should like you. We should be doing our own homework and being aware, as Mr. Tevlin has mentioned, we should be out there doing our research.
I would also like to say that the calendar days that you send us of how you're spending your days, it's pretty self-explanatory that you're not sitting around twiddling your thumbs. So, if you want to maintain that, just as an update, because that helps us complete this if we're going to go that direction. But again, as you said, this will be added to for next year because it'll be a whole nother dimension. So.
I know when I've been busy and catch up with emails, I called him on a Saturday night at 9 o'clock and the man answers his cell phone. Whatever needs to be discussed. So he's been readily available.
Okay, very good. So, we're at the, what? You made a motion, Daryl made a motion. Okay, and Odette seconded the motion. Is there any further discussion?
Do we want to make the motion to add the box for not enough info option?
Was it not enough info or not applicable? I always read that as not applicable.
I think it was just
NA.
But we need to decide what NA stands for, so if it's not enough information or if it's not applicable, we need to make a clarification.
If it's not applicable, it shouldn't be on here.
Well, in the past, we've had things that weren't applicable, because it was the role of a principal, not the role of a superintendent in past surveys.
Well,
That's
then,
the way
so
I
that's-
Are we
felt.
feeling that that's the case in this
Well,
form?
so
or-
do we need an NA, which is going to stand for what?
No, I don't think we do.
No, I don't feel so.
For not enough information, that's a difference.
Right, that's what I'm trying to clarify.
NA,
Right,
we shouldn't even be
It
on
should
there.
be on
Shouldn't be, right.
correct.
But not enough information, if that was on the past one, I can understand that.
Okay, I was thinking NA was not applicable, which is the way I interpreted, so. Yeah, NA, which would have been not applicable. There were just one or two areas where I just. Right. So, I would say that if it's not clear, that you can email and get clarification. And you can do that now at any point in time if there's something you truly don't understand, because it may be teacher language or education language. Go ahead and do clarifications. Okay, any other comments? So we'll go ahead and vote. All in favor of this as we see it here for the moment?
Aye.
Any objections? Okay, motion passes. Very good. Okay, 12C, approval of the 2015-16 Cape Coral Charter School calendar. All right.
Coming into the system, one of the beauties is that we had the early release days. I am a big advocate of an early release day system. However, I think that we had a few too many, let's just put it that way. So if you look at the new calendar, it basically blocks it to about one a month instead of about every 2 weeks. So one a month is, in my world, very reasonable. I think the bang for buck that we get from our training of these teachers is well worth the time. And again,